Well, hello, my friends, and welcome back to the cabin. Today is March 13th, 2018. It's 34 degrees, snowing hard, and we'll have 11 hours and 48 minutes of daylight on the mountain today. That's 2 hours and 16 minutes more than we had at the time of my last posting. We're stacking up some daylight, all right, but it's looking like old man winter just ain't ready to quit. This is the Cabin Life Journals, episode number 7, titled Blessings in Disguise. The other day, just out of the blue, the thought of an old friend of mine popped into my head, one I haven't talked with or even thought about in decades. And then later in the evening, I got an email informing me that my old friend had passed away. His name was Dave, and he was amongst my circle of friends during my childhood days. And after digging for more information about his death, what I discovered was unexpected and made me grateful for wishes that were never granted. My childhood friendships ranged from both ends of the spectrum. My buddy Roger came from the poorest family in the neighborhood, and Dave was from a family that most other families were jealous of, mine included. Jealousy was a familiar emotion for me as well, because Dave always got the latest and greatest of everything, and he never had to work for them. This made me jealous beyond words and often spurred resentments towards my parents for the way that we lived and for all the chores that were expected of me. I rarely ever saw Dave doing chores, but nonetheless, there was a nice new car waiting for him when he turned 16, and that made me furious because I had to sell my boat and my dirt bike just to afford my driving school. Never mind what it took me to buy my first vehicle. And to say it wasn't much of a showpiece, oh, that would be an understatement. You see, throughout my life, even as a boy, I'd find ways of getting what I wanted, but not because they were handed to me. No, sir. There weren't many handouts during my childhood, and throwing a hissy fit because I wasn't getting what I wanted, well, that only pushed my desires further out of my reach. All the normal obligations were fulfilled. I had good food to eat, clean clothes to wear, and a warm house to grow up in, but expectations of having my wants and wishes granted by my parents usually, if not always, led to disappointment. I didn't like disappointment, so I learned to avoid expectations altogether. My needs were fulfilled by my parents, my wants were left up to me, and that, my friends, is what taught me the difference between dependency and independence. You see, when I was a boy, I wanted things, and all of my friends wanted things, and we'd talk about our wants, wishes, and dreams, and so on. One friend wanted to be an archaeologist and dig up dinosaur bones. One wanted to drive race cars, and others wanted the this and that's that were never pursued. I wanted my own fishing boat. I wanted a dirt bike. I wanted that new Daisy Powerline pump-up BB gun. And Roger and I always talked about sharing an apartment when we grew up. We'd drive Chevy Blazers and hunt and trap and build a cabin in the woods and live the good life. When we talked about such things, I could see myself having them and doing them with a vision as clear as a memory. My dreams weren't silly ideas, they were plans, and I spoke of them as such. I'd say when I have and when I do, rather than if I have and if I do, because I believed I would have them all and do them all, because I had already established a confidence from the accomplishments of getting what I wanted, and getting them on my own. The only thing that ever kept me from getting what I wanted was my lack of pursuing them. I worked at a conglomeration of odd jobs and managed to buy my boat. I bought my dirt bike, too, and the new Daisy Powerline pump-up BB gun. I shared an apartment with Roger when I was 16, and eventually we each got Chevy Blazers. Blazers that we drove all the way to that property I bought where I built my first cabin. Accomplishments stemming from an upbringing of being frugal. Learning to fend for myself was the most valuable lesson I have ever learned, but it was a blessing in disguise, I'll tell you, and disguised pretty good, because I spent the majority of my childhood wishing I could be like Dave. The last time I saw him was in 2001, when I returned to the old neighborhood to meet with my family after my dad's passing. I ran into Dave at the local corner store that we used to frequent. We exchanged pleasantries, and I learned he was still living in the same house he grew up in. I didn't ask any particulars, and after a bit of small talk, I went on my way, and haven't so much as thought about him until the other day when I learned he had passed away. I also learned that he never left home and never really accomplished much of anything. I was deeply saddened by his story, because if anyone had the tools to succeed in life, it was Dave. But as it turns out, the silver spoon that stirred my jealousy all those years served him more harm than good, and when he lost his parents, he was lost without them. Having the best tools will serve no purpose if you never learn to use them. I'm grateful for the stingy parents that I had. By not giving me what I wanted for the day, they gave me all I needed for a lifetime. And that, my friends, was the greatest gift of all. Well, that's just the way we look at it here in my neck of the woods.